It's time for today's face-off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-off on Fox Soul starts right now.
It's around the Diddy as we're following this case very closely here on Live Now from Fox as Diddy's lawyers say the feds raided his jail cell and seized a bunch of privileged material. So an interesting one to say the least about this. I want to put up some posts here from former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani about this, saying Diddy's lawyers are claiming that it violates his Fourth Amendment right. However, inmates don't have Fourth Amendment expectation of privacy in prison, so that argument is weak. Guards can search his cell without probable cause or a warrant. So a big development there in terms of this. Privileged material, different. The feds usually have a taint or dirty team of agents who aren't working on the case to conduct these searches. That way, if they see privileged materials, the clean team won't be disqualified from the case. It goes on to say as well, the prosecutors have reason to believe Diddy is obstructing justice from the prison by contacting witnesses through intermediaries. They made the same argument during his bail hearing. I think they have evidence to back it up. All right, as we continue on, witness tampering also falls under the crime fraud exemption to attorney-client privilege. All right, let's bring into the conversation right now Nima.
In this round, here's Quan LX.
Charles, we just watched a news story that makes some serious allegations against prosecutors that are prosecuting P. Diddy in his New York sex trafficking case. It is being alleged by Diddy's attorneys that guards at the facility where Diddy is being held in custody were instructed by prosecutors to raid his cell and to look for certain material that would strengthen their request to continue denying Diddy bond, who has an upcoming bond hearing. Based on that revelation, that information, they took that and gave it to the federal judge as reason why Diddy should not be allowed to be given bond, should remain in custody because he's tampering with witnesses. But all of this material that they're referencing was directed directly to his attorney's office and his lawyers. So it is a constitutional right that you have attorney-client privilege, I believe. So why would they know this and see what's written on it, says his lawyer's office and name, and take that same information and use that against him to request denying him bond, then try to justify it in their statement about inmates does not have a right to privacy when it comes to attorney-client information? I think that's a crazy damn lie, man.
Well, I think that it's far more nuanced than you're wanting to accept. One, as the pundit mentioned by the Fox local anchor, that if you are in fact in prison, in a cell, you don't have a right to privacy. You don't have a right to refuse a search. They can search your jail cell at any point for any reason. Right, that is a function of being a prisoner. There's not really a lot of Fourth Amendment rights against search and seizure there. The question is whether the materials they took, and in the first report I saw on this, it was a bit vague. It read as if that materials created by the attorney given to Sean Combs were being gone through by the feds, and that's not the case.
And I wouldn't doubt that.
But that's not the case. And when you get some more clarity, it is that he wrote notes and self-marked them as attorney-client notes. And so then the question is, does merely writing attorney-client on the top of something create a shield from the feds looking at it during a lawful cell search? And the real question is, well, were they actually notes intended to assist his attorneys in the preparation of defense?
But that's not for prosecutors and guards to decide.
Hold on.
That's privileged material,
okay,
Charles.
Not necessarily. If he is
Well, then why did the federal judge grant him a hearing based on prosecutorial misconduct, alleging misconduct for them confiscating the attorney-client material? So, in fact, the prosecutor said that they didn't want to have a hearing on it, but the judge granted his defense counsel a hearing on this misconduct allegation.
Well, I always know when you don't want to hear the truth because you just interrupt me and go on.
You're a lawyer, a former judge.
Right. You want me to finish my thought, or are you going to keep interrupting me?
You just don't like P. Diddy, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Actually, I was a big fan. I mean, I'm more of a Mace guy, and I think he ran him out of New York, but I was a fan of his music for years. I mean, he's a good producer. But I don't like people that rape women after drugging them.
That's
don't
an allegation.
Okay, and I tend to believe the allegation. After I saw him
Wait, now
standing
you're a criminal defense attorney that believes the allegation, and man, even had a trial yet?
After I saw the video of him standing over Cassie and punching her in the face like a punching
And that made him a rapist now.
It made him a monster, right? And you know what? Where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a ton of allegations. But here's the thing. If they were actually attorney-client notes and they were viewed by the counsel prosecuting the case, there should be some serious repercussions, whether it is the denial of use of evidence against him,
and they took that evidence
as fruit
material
of
to
the
deny
poison
bond
tree,
in the upcoming hearing.
or exclusion of attorneys that are working on prosecuting it that had the information available. There's some big questions there, but it sounds like the Justice Department is making the claim that these were not in fact attorney-client materials, but instead his efforts to tamper with witnesses that he was falsely identifying as attorney-client materials. And if that is true, he has no right to privilege. And
I believe that's the excuse that the Justice Department is giving to justify misconduct.
Okay. And I wonder what it is about Sean Combs, despite him punching a woman mercilessly while
which
she's
was
laying
a
on
disgrace.
The floor. Okay, but I wonder what it is about Sean Combs that has you sticking up for him, that if it was, I don't know, any producer that wasn't
Let me say
black,
this.
you'd be
I'm
calling
not
for his
sticking
head.
up
Oh,
for
you
him.
won't.
I'm sticking
you just
up.
accused
Let me finish.
of not liking him.
Of course,
you
and you
just
don't.
Said,
I'm sticking up for what is right over wrong.
Okay.
I'm sticking up for people's constitutional rights, even though they're in custody.
And
Charles, we have watched prosecutorial misconduct at a level like we have not seen in 2 decades in the last 3 years in this country. Charles, we have watched the Justice Department pay FBI agents to go facilitate lies for the Joe Biden administration and to pretend like evidence was not evidence. That's the Justice Department, Charles. So how can we trust what's coming out of there? It ain't been cleaned up yet.
That has you so worked up in his defense.
He's innocent until proven guilty, Charles. That's all I'm saying.
It's
what he did to Cassie was wrong.
It's funny how you trot
but you're going to make him a monster?
He
made a bad decision and got help for it.
For black men who have been caught doing
Charles,
something awful. When it's a white guy or a Latino or an Asian,
Charles,
you're calling
we
for
just
their
watched
head.
a white guy charged with the same thing.
Okay.
Who was having sex with the teenage models.
Okay.
Ran a sex trafficking ring. But what happened to him? He was given bond and charged with the same exact thing.
Actually, you're talking.
And he was given bond.
Are you talking about the former head of Abercrombie?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
I didn't want to say that name, but yes.
That he's not charged with the same thing.
Sex trafficking and rape.
Right, but then there's all these other charges that are on Diddy for all kinds of
But he's charged with sex trafficking and rape.
And
he's given bond, but not Diddy.
Similar charges, but the crux there, one, you have different judges making the decision, but the big crux is the threat of Diddy, of Sean Combs, I call him that stupid Diddy, is tampering with witnesses. And if the Justice Department seized evidence of witness tampering, then their behavior was completely appropriate.
We should not support prosecutorial misconduct.
Sean Combs is a monster.
Judicial prosecutorial misconduct should never be accepted, never tolerated.
Prosecutorial misconduct.
There has been another Diddy lawsuit, but this one goes in the opposite direction. In this one, what looks like a celebrity is suing the lawyer who has filed all the lawsuits against Diddy, suing him.
Most of them.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
More than 120 lawsuits. Eventually he'll have that
Tony
number.
Busby.
And it's for extortion. Extortion.
Yeah, this is potentially a game changer in the Diddy lawsuit arena because someone, a prominent, only referring to himself as a prominent figure,
who has some connection to
and
Diddy.
has connection to Diddy, admittedly says this is in their lawsuit, they said this is someone who associated with Diddy, attended his parties, and because of that association, they say that this person received a demand letter from Tony Busby. Now, we spoke to Tony Busby. We were telling you about these demand letters.
In fact, it's in our documentary.
It's in our documentary. He's very open about the fact, Tony Busby is, that he has sent these letters to celebrities who, even if they weren't necessarily engaging in any illegal activity, but if they were at a party and did nothing to stop illegal activity.
If they saw, for example, somebody who is having sex where they're not really competent to make a decision to say yes to it because they're on drugs or alcohol, he feels they are as guilty as the perpetrator who essentially raped that person.
Right.
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
Okay, so there are reports that Tony Busby, the Busby law firm, and Tony, I've known him for years, he's a friend of mine, he is being sued in Los Angeles by an anonymous, what they believe is a high-profile celebrity who is claiming that Busby and his law firm sought to extort money from him without cause by alleging criminal conduct, specifically sex with underage people or sexual assault. And well, the basic allegation is this is an attempt to extort money. We listened to TMZ try to rationalize the demands of people that weren't necessarily involved. And I will tell you that, you know, you don't have an affirmative duty to render aid in many situations, right? If you are conspiring in a criminal enterprise and you had the mens rea, the culpable mental state, to engage in the furtherance of this enterprise, even if you weren't actually the rapist, then you could have some liability. I don't think that you can extend that to just mere presence, right? Unless they were aware. So I don't think that dog hunts. But the real question is, was Tony told by a client that conduct occurred, right? If Tony was told by a client and that the conduct occurred and then sought to recover damages for that client, I don't think this lawsuit has any merit. If they're able to establish that instead that this was concocted by the lawyer to try to get money out of people for fear of being tainted by the story, then the lawsuit might have legs. And frankly, I just don't know. I can't imagine Tony just conjuring stuff up, making stuff up, and furthering a lie. But we're going to have to wait and see, right? It doesn't, to me, the Tony I know, I don't see him ever doing it. But if there were demands made of people without any reasonable belief to feel like they were engaged in the conduct simply to scare them into paying money, it could be a problem.
I believe that's exactly what happened.
Well, why?
When you look at how fast he took these clients and then turned right around within 2 weeks and filed these lawsuits one after another to the tune of over 100. Once he was arrested, he started taking these clients, Charles.
Okay.
And let me say this, within 2 weeks of his arrest, he filed over 100 lawsuits.
So?
His law firm did not have the ability to investigate all of those claims one by one to make sure they had some type of merit to them before you file these claims.
I think you misunderstand.
Secondly, hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish.
Well, you interrupted me last time.
Then he went
ahead.
on to say publicly that there are many entertainment figures and other high-profile individuals that we're looking at that we're potentially going to file lawsuit on them within a week. Did not happen. Now we come to find out there are high-profile individuals that he's been contacting and saying that you either settle with us or at least agree, according to the lawsuit, agree to go to mediation with us, or we'll go public with the lawsuit. Charles, I told you that was going to happen. On this very show, I told you there's no way possible that Diddy can go to trial in a civil court or in a criminal court with these cases without indicting other high-profile individuals who was partying, having sex at these parties, doing all type of freak-offs with him at these parties. Charles, you can't just indict Diddy. You can't just file lawsuits on Diddy when other people were engaged in the same exact acts as Diddy in these parties. And in order for that to happen, they have to expose these high-profile individuals, politicians, preachers, and entertainment figures, and entertainment moguls and business moguls. They were not going to go that far. They didn't do it in the Weinstein case. They didn't do it in the Epstein Island case. They're not going to do it in this one.
Actually, in the Epstein Island case, there were scores of civil suits filed against all kind of people.
And how many names were kept private?
And a great number of
And how many names were kept private?
Okay, there's obviously
We still don't know who all was on the line
but
right
we
now.
know a great number who
The
were.
government
And
has refused to release all the names to this very
The
day.
only person who refused, that I'm aware of, that refused to settle and vigorously fought back to try to
Was the attorney
establish
Dershowitz?
innocence was Alan Dershowitz, my former professor, who said, look, and my thing with Epstein is it was apparently very brazen, right? These young girls running around his little island, and that there was no way. It's my understanding that there were some very
But it's my
high-profile divorces.
understanding
Hold
that
on.
after his
You keep
conviction, he was willing to cooperate and was planning to cooperate, and he came up dead.
Okay.
Allegedly hung himself.
Okay, but
Then that turned out to be a
Well,
lie.
let's talk about Diddy, right? Diddy is charged because Diddy was having parties. Diddy was apparently drugging women. And the question for the other attendees is whether or not they were aware that women were being drugged. They were aware that women were being coerced. And that's the big question. Just mere presence isn't enough. But the question for Busby is not whether he's investigated to the end of the earth all claims, is if he had a client come in with a credible story and say, hey, look, this happened to me, and then he pursued those claims. Now, I've heard varied takes with the Deshaun Watson matter, where Busby was also the primary, that there were some legitimate masseuses that he coerced into doing awful things, right? Like sticking fingers in his anus and all kind of gross stuff, and he coerced them. And then there were actually prostitutes who also tried to push claims. But the problem is, when you're raping underage women, when you're raping women, when you're raping men, you know, other people are going to come out. And if you were a famous person attending it and you didn't leave, well, you might get a threatening letter. Busby's out there doing the Lord's work. Good for you, Tony.
The Lord's work?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Did you just say the Lord's work?
Holding these scumbags to
You don't
account.
even believe in God no more. What do you mean the Lord's work?
Come on.
You don't even believe in the Lord no more.
Hawaiian. Okay. Can you go like this, like blow a kiss? Yeah. Hand to the face. Ah. Like, yeah. Okay. You're so cute. How tall are you? Oh, running again. Yeah. You love to run. Oh, you're that tall. I think you are. Oh, yeah, sure. You stay fit by running. That running move gets me every time. Yeah. Rock, paper, scissors. Oh, raise the roof. Yep. Hey. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Oh, you're a little slow, but I beat you. Okay.
In addition to that, Felix currently cannot connect the girl behind me. Get the connection.
Well, that was Kim Kardashian showing off her new robot. And one part that they didn't show in her showing off her new robot in that segment, she says, who needs a boyfriend when I've got a Tesla robot? So now she's saying that she has a robot. She no longer even needs a real man anymore. Everything a real man can do for her, she got a robot that can do it for her. And
that robot comes equipped?
I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised, because I'm going to say something. Women like Kim Kardashian have been playing with handheld robots for a long time.
Well, when you say women like Kim Kardashian, what do you mean?
Let me be crystal clear. It won't be long, I believe, before we see another famous sex tape come out involving Kim and the robot. And they've been playing with them robots in them rooms for a long time. You walk to the room, you hear them bzzz. They play with the robots.
Okay.
So this ain't nothing but a bigger robot.
You know, my problem with this is completely different, right? This is a billionaire showing off her replacement for human employees, right? This is the let them eat cake moment that is most certainly coming, the polarization of wealth. We're going to just, basically we've been transporting jobs to the developing world for years, and this is going to further this into America, where people on the come up, right? People trying to get low-level jobs to finance their way through the education are going to be replaced by robots until we only have an aristocracy of the super rich and C's of the super poor, until they've had enough and there is some sort of either electoral revolt or a violent revolt.
Or until those robots become self-conscious and become self-aware and realize they no longer should serve an inferior creation.
Well, I mean, that probably won't happen.
It's already been happening.
Okay, but hold on. What is happening is we're, self-checkout, touchpad registries, right? And of course, I literally, at the football stadium this weekend in Boulder, you go and get your drink out of a refrigerator, you walk it up and you pay for it, and the options were 18, 22, 25% tip. The cashier did nothing.
The hell you tipping?
Yeah, I didn't tip, but I'm a good tipper. But we're getting this culture where we're eliminating bank tellers, or we're eliminating tellers for bank machines inside the bank. And then we, as Americans, have to say no. But what Tesla is pushing trucks.
But what about women who want to replace real men with the robot?
You always want to make it sexual weird.
Excuse me. Okay. She said she don't need a boyfriend no more. She got the robot.
Because there are more important issues than how Kim K orgasms, right?
I didn't say she was going to orgasm.
Okay, then why were you talking about vibrators?
But she say replacing the white,
but here's the thing.
Replacing the man with the robot.
Elon Musk wants to replace truck drivers with automated trucks.
It's going to happen.
And that is the biggest employer
just laid off 300
undereducated men. It's insane.
FedEx just laid off 300 today because they're going to automation robots.
We need our Congress to look out for the working class. And that's why the Democrats lost, and that's why the Republicans are going to lose in the future, because no one's looking out for the working class. And these robots are a bad thing for the working class.
That's it for the Face Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.